Good afternoon to my students under CDI 4, which is Traffic Investigation, which is the Accident Investigation and Intelligence. So let's proceed with our lecture, the education, the part of traffic education. So these are the pillars of traffic management. Last time is the enforcement. Now we are going to proceed with the continuation of education. So there is a explanation here that education first, then enforcement. Before we enforce the law, we must educate the people. We must give them awareness and information to be able for them to follow what is the guidelines and rules, procedures given by the law, given by the government. So enforcement not preceded and accompanied by a thorough of the public regarding the regulation is almost invariably unsuccessful. So of course, the enforcement cannot be effective and efficient when the people in a certain area doesn't know or do not know the existing policies and procedures. So hindi porke ngayon nag-create ka halimbawa ng yung batas, trapiko, ngayon ng araw, tapos implement mo na siya. So you must first educate the people surrounds you. Punishment for a violation that results from ignorance of the regulation usually creates a more adequate signs and markings and the dissemination of regulatory information. Disposition of these advertent violators should be directly primarily at their education. So those who are traffic violators, so we must instill information, educate them of the policies and procedure para maganda, hindi na sila uulit. Public relations activities, avoidance of accordion effect. So we have a public address system or PAS, equipment, creation of junior traffic patrols, public school assistance, seminars, high school safety, and so on and so forth. So this is the education. So in short, sa Tagalog, kinakailangan natin turuan yung tao, ipaalam sa kanya kung ano mga yung mga existing na batas na meron tayo para hindi siya maka-violate at saka maayos yung takbo ng trapiko. We have traffic enforcement. The primary purpose of traffic enforcement is to induce voluntary compliance with reasonable traffic regulations. So, ang traffic enforcement agency natin is na-create sila para maging maganda yung traffic way, maganda yung pagdaan ng ating mga sasakyan, ng ating motorist, ng ating mga pedestrians. So, yan yung kagandahan. Traffic law enforcement includes all police activities. So, last time I have already discussed this one. So, lahat ng traffic law enforcement includes lahat ng police activities, including, halimbawa, during checkpoint, during traffic patrolling. So, yan yung mga halimbawa. So, we have maximum safety with minimum penalty. So, maximum safety with a minimum public inconvenience, penalty and resentment should be the police goal. So, of course, when we have a good enforcement of the law, kasama na yan dyan ng education, may alam yung tao, tapos strict yung pamamalakad, walang kinikilingan, hindi porke ka mag-anak mo, padadaanin mo na lang dyan, o kaya kahit naka-create ng violation is padadaanin mo na lang siya nang wala kang binibigay na karampatang parusa, for example, punishment. So, nakasalalay yan sa mga taong nagkakandak ng traffic. Maximum safety is obtained by the use of the most effective control procedures directed at the group most likely to have accident. Resentment result from procedures that are not acceptable to the general public. So there are times na kahit na may kinikilingan ng batas natin, tapos yung mga tao sa paligid, hindi sila pinapaniwalaan. So, kinakailangan nating bigyan sila ng education para mas maging maganda yung procedure. Kasi kapag walang aksidente dyan, walang mga resentment, walang mga problema, chaos sa daan, so wala tayong penalty na ibibigay dun sa tao kasi maganda yung flow of traffic. Enforcement policy. The policy of enforcement must be set by the top administration of the police unit. Too much fence straddling is firmly establishing policy has fatal result on the effectiveness of an enforcement program. The officer should know just what is expected of them while at work. So of course, kapag nasa work field ang isang enforcer o traffic enforcer, so alam niya dapat yung kanyang lugar, alam niya kung hanggang saan yung kanyang tolerance, yung kanyang pakikipag-communicate sa tao, alam niya kung paano sila kakausapin ng maayos, how he will deal with them, or she will deal with them para maganda yung pamamalakad niya at hindi siya mag-create ng malalang problema sa loob ng kali. Isipin mo na lang halimbawa na yung enforcer natin, traffic enforcer natin, ay parating galit. Binabatukan yung mga nandyan. Konting ano lang dyan, problema, nagagalit na agad. So, paano na lamang yung magandang flow ng ating communication sa traffic? We have selective enforcement. Selective enforcement is based on prediction and prevention of future accidents from past experience. So, meron tayong selective enforcement kung saan ginapredict natin na pwedeng itong madulas na bahaging ito dahil pakurbada halimbawa yung daanan. So, gagawa tayo ng mga signage para i-predict natin na may mangyayari diyang aksidente kapag hindi tayo naglagay ng signage. Ito is a form of prevention. Selective enforcement is defined as enforcement proportional to traffic accidents with respect to time, place, and type of violation. So, this is what we call as, kung halimbawa, dahil dyan, maraming aksidente nangyayari dyan, anong oras, saan madalas nangyayari, at anong klaseng violation ang nangyayari dyan. So, these are the enforcement na dapat nating pinapaganda at saka inaayos para maganda yung ating traffic protocols and guidelines. Selective enforcement may result from the use of extensive studies and computer-based record systems, but it can also be based upon a manual study of accident records, an accident location spot map, or a responsive supervisor in gear and ready to listen to the feedback from traffic officers working in the field. So, di ba, dito sa Marawi City, makikita nyo lahat ng kanto-kanto dito sa may Basak Malatalat hanggang doon sa may Sarimanok, may mga traffic enforcer dyan, papunta hanggang sa public, may Pakpak General Hospital. So yan yung mga kadalasang crowded na daanan dahil public highway. So makikita nyo nandyan yung mga traffic enforcer natin parating na mamalagi dyan para maiwasan yung congestion sa loob ng ating lugar. The contribution of selective enforcement to traffic control is planned patrol work, which creates an impression of police effectiveness in the minds of drivers using certain area, and as a result, induces an unusual voluntary compliance with vehicle code regulations. So kapag halimbawa dito sa kapag nandyan yung mga traffic enforcers natin, nandyan yung mga CCTV natin halimbawa, nandyan yung traffic lights, any form of traffic studies, traffic enforcement, yan yung magiging daan para mag-voluntary yung lahat ng motorist, lahat ng pedestrian, lahat ng dadaan dyan na mag-comply with the existing rules. Okay, we have enforcement techniques. The principal enforcement techniques generally fall into the following classifications. So, ang mga techniques kung paano tayo mag-inform ng maayos sa traffic is, number 1, the enforcement effects by the uniform officers on entries assigned to mobile units for general duty police patrol. The voluntary compliance aspect of this type of enforcement action exists only in the officer's presence. Di ba minsan, talagang matatakot ka kapag naka-uniform mo yung kausap mong police, halimbawa, sundalo. Pero kapag nakita mo yung hindi uniform, naka-civilian, so hindi ka matatakot dahil hindi mo malalaman na siya ay police. So, by the presence of his uniform or her uniform, so makikita mo parang yung tao is tawag dito, nagko-comply with the existing rules. Dahil kapag hindi siya nag-comply, maiisip niya na police yan, pwede akong dakipin, for example. Dakpin. Patrol enforcement by traffic officers and plainly marked cars or on motorcycles, high-level deterrent value but again only in presence of officers. So, plain marked, halimbawa, yung mga sasakyan na ginagamit sa pagkakandak ng traffic. So, kapag nakita yan ng mga tao sa daanan, sa paligid is, matatakot sila at mag-comply sila. Pero kinakailangan pa rin ng officers. Hindi po pwedeng sasakyan lang nandyan, di ba? Enforcement at accident scenes for violations contributing to the accident. So, we must, we must enforce a first aid, for example, or first, in the crime scene, so magre-respond tayo for any accident scene, tapos huhulihin natin sila kung sila ay nakalabag sa batas o kaya pag-ayusin, for example, usually affected by the uniform accident investigators. This enforcement has a value in accident prevention, but it is believed to be high because of its great selectivity of enforcement against the driver contributing to accident causation. So, in order for a smooth communication, kinakailangan meron tayo diyang mga investigators, meron tayong diyang mga traffic investigators na nagtatrabaho halimbawa sa traffic enforcement, halimbawa. So yan yung mga kagandaan. Patrol by uniform officers in unmarked cars. So merong mga unmarked cars na hindi pang gobyerno yung sasakyan, so nakanandun yung mga uniform officers. A new technique with a high voluntary compliance value that extends far beyond the presence of the officers. So yan yung mga technique. Radar speed management by uniform officers with plainly marked chase vehicles but unmarked radar screen cars. Radar has a high volume compliance ratio beyond the presence of the officer. Radar, for example, yung mabilis magpatakbo, nakikita doon na makikita doon kung gaano kabilis yung magpatakbo ang isang tao. Speedometer operation by uniform personnel. So, it includes, makikita natin dyan kung paano gaano kabilis, gaano, tawag dito, how fast the driver, how fast kung paano siya nagpapatakbo ng sasakyan. Air ground speed control, so yan, air ground speed control, so clocking vitals with a stopwatch over precisely marked stretches of highway. Makikita niyo sa Davao City, kapag halimbawa, nagmaneho ka ng mabilis, makikita nila yan, mabilis, tapos hahabulin ka nila. Safety checks or roadblocks manned by uniformed personnel. So, dito yung mga halimbawa, may mga signage dyan na slow down, mga ganyan. So, kinakailangan nilang mag-comply. So, the effect of extending enforcement as a deterrent beyond the presence of the police officer can be achieved. Of course, ang lahat ng civilian, kapag nakakita yan ng police, sundalo, ano pa man dyan, sa lahat ng law enforcement bodies na nag-implement, nag-enforce ng batas natin, maganda yung kanilang pagpapatakbo kapag naka-uniform sila. The clientele of the law enforcement agencies of driver control can be loosely grouped into two main classes, the occasional offender and the chronic offender. So, meron tayong dalawang kliyente, mga basagulerong driver, for example, mga violators natin. So, ito yung mga offender na dalawang uri. The occasional offender is in the majority. Of course, marami ang ito sa occasional offenders. This is the driver who races along the highway with no greater need than the fact that the time was running on a dental appointment. The weaver who cuts in and out of traffic solely to appease an underlying desire of excitement. Drunken driver who escapes reality through alcohol. So, yun yung mga occasional driver offender natin. Halimbawa, yung dahil nagmamadali, malilit sa opisina, malilit sa check-up, sa dental check-up, for example, may pupuntahan, nagmamadali. So, yun yung mga occasional offender natin. The chronic violator naman is a social deviant who has been defined as an accident riding around looking for a place to happen. This is the type of driver who may have previous speeding violations recorded on his license but still violates the speed laws. So, ito yung mga naka-violate na ng dati, tapos ulitin na naman niya. So, yun yung chronic violators. Possibly, the only remedy for this type of driver is suspension or revocation before self-destruction at the wheel of the car involves the good health of others user of the highway. So, of course, para ma-prevent natin siya na hindi siya makabangga at saka maka-cause ng accident doon sa mga ibang motorist. So, kailangan natin sila with the help of the LTO and the LTFRB, kahit sino pa man dyan, the traffic enforcer, so revocation or suspension. I-suspend natin yung kanyang driver's license para halimbawa 1 year, 1 month, o kaya revocation ng tatanggalan natin ng lisensya. So, yun yung mga halimbawa. So, maraming salamat and good morning. I am hoping that you will prepare for the incoming prelim examination because lahat ng nakalagay dito sa pinag-aralan natin, although self-explanatory sa inyo kapag binasa natin, is isasama natin sa exam. Actually, I have already prepared the examination. So, printing na lang. So, I am hoping na mag-aral kayo because if you got an IC grade in the prelim, so hindi ko yan gagawa ng paraan hanggat hindi kayo nag-comply. So, maraming salamat and good afternoon.